The Old Uncle Bastard Show will begin in 1 minute. The Old Uncle Bastard Show will begin in 30 seconds. Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. The Old Uncle Bastard Show is meant for an adult audience because the language can get pretty rough sometimes. Listener discretion is advised.
Uncle Bastard, here comes Uncle Bastard. Uncle Bastard, here he comes again. He's as grouchy as can be, shakes his fist at the TV. Always yells and he smells, always mad, which is glad. We don't live with Uncle Bastard, crazy Uncle Bastard. Uncle Bastard, time out for the show. He's an evil crazy nut, and he never wipes his butt. Crazy nut, wipes his butt, always yells and he smells, always mad, which is glad. We don't live with. All right, you little crumb snatchers, beat it before I sick the dogs on you. It's time for the Old Uncle Bastard Show.
All right, America. Time to grab your ankles. You knew this was going to happen. It's time for the Old Uncle Bastard Show. Now, on Spreaker Web Radio. As usual, our presentation today is brought to you by the generous, charitable folks at audible.com. Sign up for a free 30-day trial today by logging on to www.audibletrial.com/oldunklebastard and get a free download of any one of the more than 100,000 titles at audible.com. And now, with no further ado, for there has been far too much ado already, here is your host, your mean, grouchy, old Uncle Bastard.
Can there ever really be too much ado? I wonder sometimes. Hello, this is your old Uncle Bastard, otherwise known as the Liberal Grouch, and if you're wondering why I've abandoned the voice like that, it's because I'm sorry, it's just too difficult for me to maintain that for an entire show, and then I spend the rest of the day with a really achy throat, so. It's something, it's part of the Parkinson's disease, and like I said yesterday, I've celebrated, if that's the correct word for it, 13 years with this very close friend of mine. But this is our first show again on Spreaker.com, and if I'm coming through loud and clear, I hope you'll send me a tweet at liberalgrouch.com. Or I should say, just tweet at Liberal Grouch, and let's have a little fun together. But as we begin this bright new era in the Old Uncle Bastard saga, and remember, there's a saga born every minute, I would like to start with a clean slate. And the only way I can do that is by apologizing to Lee Stranahan and his lovely wife Lauren for remarks I tweeted yesterday evening. Maestro, some apology music, if you will. That's nice. Bring it down a little bit. A little more. There we go. Now I can apologize. That's still a little hot. we'll bring it down about to there. Okay, Lee, Lauren, I'm sorry. I'm terribly sorry for the tragedy that befell you on March 30th, 2012, when you gave birth to twins, and one of them didn't make it. That's a tragedy. My own mother had that happen to her twice. And the death of an infant is not the subject of politics and sport. And I apologize for the fact that so many people thought that was what I was trying to do by raising the subject. They thought I was raising the subject of your daughter's untimely passing to mock you. And that's just not true. But if that's the impression you got, then I'm truly, deeply, and sincerely sorry. What I was trying to do, and I hope you'll understand this, is I was trying to comprehend in my own limited way how a baby can die in the United States of America during a normal childbirth. Oh, I know it happens. It happens every day, but Lee has never really explained how his beautiful daughter died, just that she died. First, he said that Lauren had a sonogram the day before the birth. He said that on his Blog Talk Radio 3 days after this tragedy happened. Now, I'm no scientist, nor am I a doctor, but I've been to sonograms. I've had them done, and I've seen them performed on pregnant women. And one thing you can tell for sure in a sonogram is that the baby is either alive or dead. Now, Lee, help me out with this, please. You tweeted at 3:25 p.m. on March 30th, 2012. And folks can check this for themselves. Again, that was 3:25 p.m. on March 30th. Hey, wait. Nobody told you to stop. All right. You tweeted that your daughter apparently died in utero. That means before birth. A couple days before the birth. Now, Lee, that's the sort of thing a sonogram would have picked up. If your wife had a sonogram the day before the twins were born, they would have noticed, without a doubt, that one baby was alive and the other, well, was not. So the day before the twins were born, if your wife had a sonogram and nobody said anything, then it's clear both babies were alive. Now, Lee, you said I was incorrect in saying that you and Lauren chose not to have your children in a traditional 21st century manner with prenatal visits and such. Did your wife, in fact, have an obstetrician? Did she make and keep regular appointments with that obstetrician? And if so, did the doctor have any worries or concerns about either of the babies? If your wife did take advantage of all that medical science has to offer, Lee, and did not just hop into a bathtub and try to squirt out a kid like they did in 1776 when I was a baby, then I apologize. You never mentioned that your wife had any sort of prenatal care. You did mention that she popped out all her previous children at home in a tub or cardboard box lined with newspaper and a nice fluffy towel or whatever, with no official medical care whatsoever. So, when I became aware of your differing accounts of the tragic circumstances of your child's birth and death, when I became aware that you knew she had a sonogram the day before the babies were born and everything seemed fine, but then during the home delivery portion of the birth, it seems that something went terribly, terribly wrong, and you stayed behind, tweeting away merrily with your friends as your wife was rushed to a hospital up there in Plano, Texas. It raised concerns in my mind. Oh, I know it's none of my business, but as a professional observer of the human condition, when concerns are raised in my mind, I naturally have to ask questions. Look, Maestro, I did not tell you to stop. Nobody told you to stop. So please continue. Thank you. Why did you not accompany your wife to the hospital? These midwives you speak of, were they trained to handle an emergency? Or were these just some of those untrained orgasmic birth people, like those you wrote about earlier? Were these trained, professional, and certified midwives, Lee? Lauren? And again, given your varying descriptions of the tragedy, well, you can't really blame a fella for wondering if you're telling the truth, Lee. It's not like you've never lied about anything. First you said she had a sonogram and everything was okie dokie. Then you said the poor baby went to heaven a couple of days before being born. Then you said the baby died during the birthing process. So we'll just assume that the last story is the one you're sticking with, and that's the accurate one. As a former medical professional, lay medical professional, if you will, I'm wondering, do you think perhaps that if you and your wife realized that birth is a complicated while still natural event, and that the reason we no longer have mommies and babies dying regularly in America during birth is because we have modern medicine and hospitals and places like that where they can monitor the baby during labor and make sure everything is okay? Oh, I understand your suspicion about the evils of society, Lee. That's why your surviving children are, as you say, unsocialized. You don't let them play with other kids. You don't let them go outside without you or Lauren with them. You're protecting them by homeschooling them, and thus ensuring that should such a day arrive when they do leave the nest, they will be hopelessly unprepared for society and all its evils and all the bad things that can happen, and therefore will become easy prey for someone like, well, someone like you, Lee. Someone who invents threats where none exist. Someone who would send police to the house of an old man who can't walk without assistance because you pretended that he threatened to rape you, your wife, and your kids. Someone who for days and weeks after being told by the police that there was no threat, continued to maintain there was a threat, so he could keep pulling in the PayPal donations for an emergency move that he never made. Lee, someone like... I did not tell you to stop. I don't care if your fingers are bleeding. Keep playing until I tell you to stop. Someone like you, Lee, who during your porno days sold your own wife's vajayjay to whoever dropped by your home studio with $299 to spend. And then you sold her like a vacuum cleaner salesman to whoever had $650 to have her deliver